Hello everyone, welcome to the Hugh Living Room. It's going to be an exciting show. We're talking about food. Well, maybe more specifically, how we consume food. So my very special guest live on set is Raschelle Sabourin. Welcome to Hugh Living Room. And you know what? This is going to be, I think, a really interesting conversation because we're not going to be talking about COVID or the pandemic. Yeah. Or we might. Correct?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay, so your whole passion for food and diets, how did that all come about?
You know, it's hard to say like exactly when it came about. Like I've been a dietitian now for over 10 years, and in high school I knew I wanted to be a dietitian. I've always had like a passion for food and helping people, so that passion has kind of always been there.
Okay, so we do have some great people in our virtual room, so let's open up the chat room too as well. I'm sure they're going to have questions for Raschelle because, well, who doesn't like food, but who hasn't been on a diet and everything like that. So I want to give a warm welcome to Robin and Kirsten and to Nadia. And I believe that we will have some more ladies jumping in. So I am going to start, though, the show with you, Nadia, because there is a very special event that's going to be happening August 5th here in the city at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. And I think everybody needs to know about this. So the mic is yours.
Thank you so much, and I'm so glad to be back. Good evening, everyone. Yes, we are very excited. I'm representing Black History Manitoba. I am the chairperson, and we are going to be celebrating emancipation here in Manitoba. The Abolishment of Slavery Act came into British Empire in 1834, and it was on August 1st. So last year, Miss MLA Jamie Moses put forth an act to proclaim a bill in the legislative government for Manitoba to acknowledge Emancipation Day here in our province. And that went through, of course, because of restrictions, we weren't able to really actually celebrate the day. But now we are open a little bit more, and we've partnered with the Human Rights Museum and also the African Communities Council of Manitoba, and we are going to be celebrating this year. We have a lot of things going on August 1st, so we decided that we want to make this accessible to as many Manitobans as possible and Winnipeggers. So we are joining for the Free Friday at the Human Rights Museum, and that means everybody is welcome to come. We'll have a little formal ceremony, and then we'll have an actual mini concert. So we'll call it the Freedom Concert. That's going to be happening in the Buehler Hall of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights.
Oh my goodness. Quickly, Nadia, what time does that show start, or what time should people arrive?
The program starts at 6 p.m. with a little reception until 6:30. So then the formal part will take about an hour and a half. So I think the museum itself opens for Free Friday at 5 p.m. and then we'll do our stuff. The concert will approximately start about 8:30, and we're there until they kick us out.
Oh, well, that's such a great way to start off August. Congratulations. And Nadia, I guess maybe for the rest of us here, when Jamie made this, proclaim this day, what was it like for the community here to have something like this for them?
It was exciting, and we love to have champions like Mr. Moses, who fulfills the obligation to our community to go out and make changes in our government system, in a political system, to include everyone. And we have a growing and active Caribbean, African, Black community here in Winnipeg, and we want to make sure that they are acknowledged and that we are going back to our history, which is what we're about. We can't make change going forward if we're not looking back and learning from our past. So this Emancipation Day celebration is to acknowledge what happened in the past, to reconcile and to celebrate what we're going to be looking forward to in the future.
Oh, well, that's so great. So congratulations. I was just wondering, the appetizers, African cuisine, because we are talking food tonight.
Yeah, that's great. No, we love food. Don't get us wrong. We love food. We will have some great appetizers from one of our local restaurant caterers, Brown's Urban Bistro. Will be doing our appetizers, and then you'll also be able to purchase a meal from Gladys's Caribbean Kitchen. Will also be there making those purchases, so you can get some Caribbean, you can get some African, a little bit of Southern. We're going to have it all combined. It's going to be a really great event.
Oh, welcome. It sounds like amazing things that are just happening right here in our city. And so once again, Nadia, thank you for, sharing that with us, everybody. August 5th, Canadian Museum for Human Rights. Be there, I'd say around 5:30 when the doors open, and make sure that you get some of that food.
Because they have some really great exhibits at the museum too.
Yes.
So I want everybody to make sure they come in and check out those. They have an anti-racism one that's really interesting to look at and to get, and then come celebrate with us.
Oh, okay. There, your Friday is done. Well, you are going to stick around, right, Nadia?
I'm going to stick around for a bit. Thank you, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to open it up to the floor, and once Raschelle and I talk a little bit more about what intuitive eating is. I'm curious.
So intuitive eating, basically it's like a self-care framework where you get you get connected more with your body, your hunger, fullness cues, and also satisfaction with food, because a lot of times like diet culture kind of takes away like the satisfaction that you get from food, and food is meant to be enjoyed. So there's like 10 principles that go with intuitive eating as well.
Can you tell us briefly what the 10 are?
Yeah, so a lot of the principles are, well, the first principle is rejecting diet culture and the diet mentality. And then a lot of the other principles, they're about like gaining satisfaction with food, honoring your hunger, honoring your fullness, having joyful movement, respecting your body. And there's also like a principle that talks about gentle nutrition. So intuitive eating also does focus on nutrition. A lot of the time people think that intuitive eating is just kind of like eating whatever you want, but there is like a nutrition aspect of that as well.
Now, did you come up with this concept, or was
No.
this something? Oh, well, you could take some credit for it, because we've never heard about it, but yeah. So where did you kind of tune into this?
So this was created by 2 dietitians. So they kind of like came up with these principles, and they have different books as well, like that you can kind of read that will give you more information on intuitive eating. So they came up with this in the 80s, and then it's kind of like evolved from there as well. So intuitive eating, though, it's not just like getting in touch with your hunger and fullness cues. There's a lot more to it as well.
Okay, so you're talking about cues. So what is a hunger cue?
Well, a hunger cue would be like, sometimes it could be as simple as like your stomach grumbling. Sometimes people get headaches, that could be another sign that you're hungry, or dizzy, weak. Sometimes your moods can change if you're hungry as well. Mm-hmm. But often a lot of clients that I work with, they also they'll lose those hunger cues.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sometimes after being on diets for a long time, we kind of we train our bodies to ignore those cues.
Right.
So sometimes clients that I work with, we have to kind of get them learning what those hunger cues are again, and get their body familiar with that.
And so the same thing would go then for when you are full.
Yeah.
And then to stop eating, right?
Yeah. So sometimes people, we need some more kind of experience, or we kind of lose those cues of when we're full, and then we tend to overeat sometimes.
And is that like binge eating, when people go right crazy eating the cookies or the chips or whatever?
Yeah, binge eating is a little bit it's complicated, and everyone has kind of a different story. Sometimes when people are binge eating too, they might kind of lose all sense of those cues, and
right.
It's kind of emotions can take over. A lot of the time, binge eating is a way to cope for people, or people that have been on restrictive diets. Over time, they kind of, it's hard to continue with that restriction cycle, so then they go and binge.
Oh, it's like it's a vicious cycle, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to open it up. Oh, and hi, Sylvia. Oh, let's start with Sylvia. Good to see you.
Hi, it's nice to be here. I'm sorry for kind of shuffling around. I'm in a different environment, so just shuffling around. I don't know how the lighting is. If it's not okay, I'm sorry. So intuitive eating makes so much sense intuitively, but it's very hard to determine, I think, because I eat somewhat intuitively, for sure. But it's very hard for me to tell when it's just something that's kind of so ingrained in my brain that it's not coming from a feeling versus like a connection to what I'm eating versus my brain. So I know I need to eat a lot of vegetables and a lot of high frequency vibrational foods like herbs and leafy greens and so on. But I'm not sure if that's because I know it or if it's because my body feels it. So I would love a little direction about that. But one thing I will tell you, and I shared this with Robin the other day, when I was diagnosed with cancer in 2020, I was told to go on this extreme ketogenic diet. So 5% carbs, nothing with any color other than green. So not a berry, not an apple peel, not a sliver of pepper. And I do everything to the extreme. And, you know, talk about overachiever. I nailed that 5% every day. I tracked every mouthful, every nut, and I really patted myself on the back for doing such a damn good job of being an excellent patient. And what I came to realize at the end of that year of doing that was that I had developed food terror. I was terrified of raspberries. I was terrified of strawberries. Like I thought bananas were like literally from the devil because they're just sugar. So it really messed with my head. And I actually went to see a different naturopath, not one who specializes in cancer, and said, if I continue to be terrified of food, that fosters this notion that I am still a cancer patient, and I do not want to identify with that. So I would like you to help me eat normally. And that's when I first started to hear this concept of intuitive eating. I have not mastered that differentiation between my intuition and my deep-seated knowledge of what is good for me.
Oh. Do you have an answer for her?
Yeah, so I'm sorry that you went through that experience with your cancer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was a really good experience because it really was a way to catapult me into some personal growth. So thank you for that, but it was great. It was a really good experience.
Yeah, and yeah, that's the trouble is when you go on these restrictive diets, a lot of the times it creates fear foods and can kind of create disordered eating as well. And that can affect people's mental health as well. So I'm sorry you went through that, but...
and then she's saying, like, how do you know the difference between feeling something and then having that knowledge that I should be eating that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the thing with intuitive eating is you don't have to do it perfectly. Sometimes you're going to eat because you're physically hungry, but then other times you might be eating for emotional reasons too, and that's okay. Like, for instance, for someone's birthday, maybe you're eating some birthday cake. So we're not always eating necessarily just for physical reasons. Sometimes it's for pure enjoyment. But your question is, I'm a little bit confused by your question because you're kind of, you're confused by sometimes if you're physically hungry or emotionally hungry. Is that your question?
No, it's more like, are my food choices based on knowledge or an intuitive sense of, so an intuitive sense of what's good for me? Are they based on knowledge of what is good for me, or are they based on cravings? So, some of us crave carbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. We crave carbs at different times. So when you give into that, how do you differentiate between this is a craving, this is me eating intuitively because this is what I feel like having right now, versus I'm eating this because I feel like it's intuitive to eat, an entire plate full of green things. But is it intuitive, or am I doing that out of the habit of knowing this is what I should do? And I don't even know if there's an easy answer to that, because I'm really tuned into my body and I can't figure it out. But if you can, I'm very thrilled. And I don't know if anybody else is wondering the same thing, or if I'm just taking up all the airtime with this question, because I don't think there's an easy answer to that.
No, and part of intuitive eating is giving yourself unconditional permission to eat foods. And the thing, sometimes people fear that because they think, oh, I'm just going to eat like cake and cookies and chips. But the thing is, once you give yourself permission to eat different foods, then you start craving other foods too. Like, you will crave things like salads and fruits and all different types of nutritious foods. So sometimes it sounds like it is kind of a little bit hard to differentiate if it's like in your situation. I would just encourage you to make sure you're giving yourself unconditional permission to eat different types of foods.
And just don't binge. Just don't binge.
You saying that, I don't know, is anybody else feeling anxious? Like my reaction to that statement is anxiety.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a normal reaction sometimes for people when they're starting off with intuitive eating, or once they're further in the journey with it too. Giving yourself unconditional permission to have foods that can cause a lot of anxiety, because you might think, yeah, I'm just going to be binging on different types of foods, and initially you might eat more of those foods, but once you continue on your journey, you're not going to be eating those foods excessively. Your body will kind of tune in that you want to eat a variety of foods.
So we're kind of talking and Sylvia is normal. And I mean, yeah, we're talking and what? Okay, Robin. Well, no, because the question I have when you're talking about it, giving yourself unconditional, allowing yourself to eat whatever, how does that or how is that helping, say, someone that's got anorexia, that's got an eating disorder, whether it's bulimia, anorexia or whatever? Is that the place where you want these people to be at so they can feel comfortable eating whatever they want?
It's different when people are in an active eating disorder. Every person's going to be a little bit different, and it depends where they are with their eating disorder recovery. But say, for instance, with anorexia, sometimes they need a meal plan at the beginning to get their weight restored, and they don't have those hunger and fullness cues, so they can't necessarily implement intuitive eating. Or people with bulimia that are struggling with that, a lot of times it's getting them to eat at regular times, and they might not be at that stage yet where they could give themselves unconditional permission to eat food. So yeah, the eating disorder, it's a little bit different for intuitive eating.
So I'm going to go then to Kirsten and to Robin. Peer support workers, mental health and wellness, food is a big part of it, right? And Kirsten's nodding her head. Go ahead.
Oh, I hear even the conversation, like Sylvia said, talking about food, and you can give yourself permission to eat what you want, and why, as females or even just people, why do we have this conversation, and I'm just sitting in my chair kind of sweating, going, what? Like, it's such a, and everybody has such a, has their unique personal experience and relationship with food, and it can be absolutely different to the person sitting beside you, like beyond different. Mm-hmm. So, gosh, going back to, how food shows up around mental health and just, mental and physical health, really, which is, food's complicated. I think it's no secret that I have a daughter who struggled with an eating disorder for years, and hers was diagnosed in a form of anorexia. And some of those, there's just so many layers to it. But sometimes, in her situation, she could tell me, she looked at food and she saw calories and she could count them. Like everything was like numbers and calories. And she really struggled with eating. And we did, the programs and services. And, in her situation, it wasn't until her mental health got into a healthier place that her relationship with food and her body began to change. And looking back, no matter what it would have happened in those teen years, until she embraced and understood her mental health, nothing was going to change. Yeah. And it's, and anorexia, what it means to, it's all about restriction, but where that restriction comes from, what it means to one person who struggles with that to another is, it can be very different, yet it's restriction, right? So, this is a good conversation. I'm sweating.
Well, and it's so weird. Really, Nadia, food is part of the African culture, and you eat, and it's a celebration. And I don't know, is it North Americans now I don't even think that you can truthfully eat healthy at a restaurant. Now, but that's my brain working, right? And like Kristen too, like your daughter, counting calories, going, oh my God, that's got to be 5,000 calories right there. I can't have that. Mm-hmm. But Nadia, like the celebration of food in your culture, how do you embrace food, I guess?
Well, I think depending, again, everybody is individual and everybody has their own history with the way you eat or where the family eats. As a culture, though, we enjoy food, family gatherings. That's the main event, is the food. The one thing that I would say from what Kristen said, the mental health around it. I think the factor is that I know for my family, for sure, we have no filter when it comes to talking about food and talking about weight. It's just a natural thing that someone will say. If, for those who don't know me, I do have a twin sister, and we just happen to be very opposite. I'm the bigger twin, is how they refer to it. And yeah, in our culture, they'll have no problem telling me, the size difference between the two of us. And growing up, I had to kind of learn to figure that out and learn how to be comfortable knowing that it's not out of any malice that they're saying it. That's just a cultural thing that they would say. And this is when I'm traveling, not necessarily here, but traveling back home to Jamaica. And my grandmother would say it all the time. Aunts would say it all the time. Nobody would, and they wouldn't think anything of it. So when I come home and I'm eating and something like that comes into my head, then it's like, maybe I won't finish that plate, or maybe I won't have that dessert. Things like that take a toll on people. And I know that there are young people everywhere that are probably dealing with that same thing in our community. And it's just a matter of trying to figure out how to deal. Some people are definitely going to be stronger than others. But those are things that we consider. So I don't know if it's a different perspective to have. So I don't know what Robin or Kristen, if you ever had to deal with that kind of position, what would you say? Or even Raschelle, which I love your name, Raschelle, because my daughter's Raschelle as well.
Oh, thank you. It's probably not spelled like my name, but
maybe not. Hers is unique as well. So So yeah, so things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say my head goes to like how beautiful for anyone just to be comfortable in their own skin and comfortable around food and comfortable with food conversations. I mean, raising daughters, I think like that would be unbelievable to raise daughters who are so comfortable like that. But what comes to mind is I have to tell you, my oldest daughter got married last weekend, and we're spending more time with her husband's family, and they were over again a few days ago, and she's an amazing cook. And she made this salad, and we're enjoying this meal because celebration is around food, right? That's and it's family, and it's how it should be. And then I was asking her, because she's an amazing cook, and she has all these experiences working in restaurants and how she got into that. And then at one point she said, you have to understand, in my home growing up, food we didn't have a lot, and food was a way of showing love and celebration. That was a way of uniting, showing love and celebration. I thought, wow, I really like you a lot. And I just thought that was beautiful. And it's not always like that in the circles that we all have to maneuver in, right? And anyways, I was thinking about that as you were sharing yourself, your story, and wow, to be in a place where you can be so comfortable around food, and especially for young people. And I think back around this intuitive eating, and ideally raising children and families, that would be like, I wish there was a manual that could instruct us how we could do that early on, because that would be fantastic. And I think that would save a lot of young people struggles. But yeah, when you go into a program for weight restoration, it's so far from intuitive eating, and it's all about manual eating and being told. And I mean, hopefully, I guess at one point you get into intuitive eating. And my daughter now has a very healthy relationship with food. She loves food. She enjoys food, and she looks great. But it was not like that for many years. And I wish we need intuitive eating manual for preschoolers. That's what we need.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Enough said.
Raschelle.
I love that comment though, because I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she's a huge motivator for me. I think kids' relationship with food starts off so early, so it's important to foster that healthy relationship.
So what are some of the things you do with your daughter then to do that?
I talk neutrally about food with her, so I don't say certain foods are bad or good or healthy or unhealthy. Food is just food. And I try to incorporate all different types of food. So we'll have, we have ice cream, and we incorporate all different types of food, all different types of nutritious foods too. And yeah, I find she actually she'll ask for apples and things like that. Right. So I find it's really helped foster a healthy relationship with food for her, talking really neutrally about food.
And we have to be careful too, because food could be used as a way of controlling them, right? Yeah. I'm thinking of my dog. Treats. But a treat to have an ice cream cone, or a treat to have a chocolate bar. Yeah. And all of those things, right? Is that's probably not a great thing, or?
Yeah, so I try not to refer to foods as treats, just food is food. And I find that's really helped.
Yeah. Yeah,
so, but it is hard, it's challenging as a parent to kind of have that balance, because sometimes you do worry, is my kid getting enough nutritious foods?
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a fine balance for sure.
So fine balance, mental health, mental wellness. Robin, your turn in all of this.
This one bites. This one bites a lot. I was talking to Sylvia about it the other day, so I may cry, but that's okay. That's about being authentic. But when I was younger, my brothers called me Pud. And I look back on pictures now and I'm like, I'm an average sized kid. What the hell? And then my brothers would steal the food off my plate if I ate slowly. So I learned to eat really quickly. And then I didn't care about the food. It was just like, oh my God, I have to eat quickly or there's nothing. And the other thing I think had a huge impact was not as a teenager. I knew there was a guy in this body, and I was like, oh, this is the wrong one. This is not the body that is how I feel. But I used food to stuff that. Mm-hmm. And I got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I kept trying everything. I think I've tried every diet known to mankind. And of course it doesn't work, because it's don't have this, don't have that. And so it wasn't about intuitive eating. It was about what I can't have. And then you get into this place of, well, if I can't have it, I want it more. So I became the quintessential binge eater. I don't know, I've seen them in Canada, Tim Tams in the stores, those yummy chocolate biscuits. I used to eat 4 packets and then stuff the packets at the bottom of the trash can so nobody saw them. And it was all about me not being happy with who I was and not accepting all of me. So when I go back and think, yeah, intuitive eating is one thing, but also allowing us to be who we are and supporting us to explore who we are as people. Mm-hmm. And what does that look like? So I don't know if it's one or the other. I think there's a combo in there. And truth be told, I had gastric sleeve surgery in 2014 now.
Okay.
I didn't get much smaller than I am now, which is what? But I, for the year after surgery, what I ate was peanut butter Reese's, Kit Kats, and Village Inn cakes. And I lost enormous amount of weight. I was just like, I'm going to eat what I want. Yeah. And I look back, and I was talking to Sylvia the other day, because I haven't been as happy as I could be lately. And so I've either eaten crap, and I call it crap because I ate so much of it, or nothing, to the point now where it's also impacted some physical stuff with my heart. So listening to this conversation is tough, because in this moment I'm fighting with myself about what I do about food. So I love the conversation about intuitive eating, and I think what I want to say is, if we can support people to explore for themselves and not judge and not get on people's cases, people will stay and find out who they are and what works for them. I just think we have a better shot at this. Sorry, I really have no idea if I made sense, because I just want to cry.
Made a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of intuitive eating is focusing on your emotional needs too. So what you've gone through, filling your emotional needs with coping with food, a lot of people struggle with that. A lot of people use food as a coping mechanism, so you're not alone with that.
Wow. You have a website? Maybe if you want to share the website for you?
Yeah, so my website is www.sabourin-nutrition.com.
Okay, so we've had a lot of talk now. What are some of the ways, I guess, Raschelle, that you do to help people? Mm-hmm. What are some of the things, like intuitive eating, but what else do you do as a dietitian? Yeah, so
I started my practice in April of 2021. I use intuitive eating principles, but it really depends, because every person is going to be in a different stage. So I do help people that are working through eating disorder recovery, And I help people with binge eating, emotional eating, stress eating. A lot of people I work with, they've like struggled with chronic dieting their whole life or disordered eating. So yeah, like each person's really different with kind of where they are and different strategies that I use. So I use kind of like a customized approach with everybody that I work with.
So when the client or when these people come to you, do they know themselves what is wrong? Well, I'm not wrong with them, that's the wrong word. Do they know, I guess, what disorder they have? Or they're just kind of coming to you going, what's wrong?
Some people that I work with, they've struggled with eating disorder, like an eating disorder for like 25 years. So they have been formally diagnosed. Other people, they don't have a diagnosis. They're just wanting help with their relationship with food. It really, every person's different.
Well, your job is pretty hard in trying to navigate through all of this. Ladies, quickly, is there anything else that you want to ask Raschelle? They're quiet. We can't have quiet in podcast. Okay, they're silent. I will do the description. They're all looking very pensive.
I'll ask a question because I have spoken to a dietitian previously, and not only for myself, but also for my daughter as well. But I wanted to know what your thoughts are about, because I love food and I enjoy food, but I don't like enjoying my food with others around. So, like, for example, I don't eat during the day at my job.
Okay.
And the reason why I don't eat during the day, I find my job fairly stressful, and I mentally in my head I'm thinking I'd like to go and take a moment to kind of de-stress and enjoy my food, but then on my other hand I'm thinking I want to take a moment and go enjoying my food, and I can't do that while I'm in my office. So I just stopped doing it, and I know it's not good. So I'm going to grow, and I know that that's not a good idea, but I look forward to coming home and eating. So I don't know if anybody has ever felt like that, but what would your take on that be?
So many people kind of work like they're struggling with that too, that I've worked with. A lot of people, like, they'll eat a small breakfast and then not have any lunch, and then when they get home they're overeating because they haven't eaten during the day. Do you find that you struggle with that sometimes?
I wouldn't necessarily say overeating. I want to enjoy it, and I find the comfort of my home makes it more enjoyable for me. So I will do the same. I'll have like a smoothie or something really quick in the morning, and then I will not eat during the day. Okay. And then just go through my day and then come home and have, like, I'll cook and do whatever and have a really nice meal.
Okay. Like, it is more optimal if you could eat throughout the day, just to keep your energy levels up, keep your blood sugar stable, and to prevent yourself from, like, overeating in the evening. But I do understand that sometimes it's hard when you have a stressful job, or like maybe you find you can't enjoy the meal at work. I would just try to encourage you maybe to have like small snacks throughout the day then.
Hey, I've got a question.
Yeah.
So, sometimes, well, actually lately, more often than not, I can't be bothered eating. And I have people who get on my case about it. What would you do with someone like me? Like, I just cannot be bothered. I live on my own, and I'm like, I cannot be bothered.
Yeah.
Cooking, getting anything, I just can't.
I think sometimes we think meals have to be really complicated. If you're feeling like that, try to stick to really simple things. And it's okay to have more convenient foods sometimes if you're feeling like that. Like, a lot of grocery stores have a lot of different options for more convenience foods that are healthy and nutritious.
Doesn't help. I've tried, I buy the simple, and I just look at it and go, I don't want that. Like, sometimes it's there, And all it would be was put it in the microwave, and I go, I can't even be bothered.
Okay.
I don't want that.
Maybe you need to set the table, put some candles on, light the candles, put a nice wine glass there, pretend you're in a restaurant. It sounds like you've already made your mind up.
Well, I think, and I think some other people might struggle. I've heard people
Yes.
struggle with this. Like, I don't enjoy living on my own. I do, and I just go, what's the point? And so, like, I'm saying this not because I think you have an answer, but I think I just want to be real and put it out there that I know other people who sometimes struggle with that too. Like, when I have the willpower and the motivation, you can't stop me. When I don't,
You don't.
screw that. Like,
Yeah.
and that just like layers on layers for mental health, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's just good to put it out there, like to say to everyone listening, we recognize this stuff, we know it's real.
No, for sure.
Can
Sylvia.
I comment on that?
Yeah.
Robin, you don't, and if I'm putting you on the spot, you do not need to respond to this. This might be a rhetorical question. What's underneath that? Because I think there's something underneath that that's maybe says, you're not worth it.
Look, you and I talked about this the other day, and I think that's one of the things in terms of sometimes I wonder if it's the chicken and the egg, right? Like, because our diet impacts our mental health, but our mental health can also impact what we do in terms of, and I say diet not meaning restrictive, but just what we eat.
Right.
And so, like, I sit here sometimes and go, which comes first? I don't know. Like, I think they're so intertwined. So I love that you've taken this topic for discussion, Tracy, because
Raschelle, I think we can continue this on because we haven't even touched body image and what is out there for females if we're really talking about it and what we portray to our kids and everything like that too. So can I have you back on?
Oh, I would love it. This has been so much fun. And the conversation that we've all had, I love all of the talking points that you guys have said.
So before we leave though, what is one thing that you can tell our viewers that would lead us towards more intuitive eating?
I'm leaning in.
All ears and eyes.
I think, diet culture is a huge influence on our diet and how we see ourselves. So I think trying to remove ourselves or just recognizing diet culture, it shows up in so many places, like the radio, everywhere. So I think, just recognizing diet culture is a huge place that's a great place to start.
Okay, and so no to diets?
Yes, I would say no to diets.
There, just to clarify. But anyways, Raschelle, let's have you back on again, okay?
Okay.
In the near future. Thank you so much, okay,
Thank you.
Raschelle, and thank you, ladies, and for joining in tonight. Really appreciate it. Don't forget, it's Black History Month in Manitoba, their big Emancipation Day celebration on Friday, August the 5th at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. So thank you again, Nadia, for sharing all of that information as well. So the conversation will continue. Robin, set a nice table, pour yourself a nice glass of wine, and make that healthy meal. You'll feel
I'm not
much
drinking anymore, but I'll try that without the alcohol.
Okay, a nice glass of apple juice, okay? We love you. All right, so thank you everybody for joining us on this edition of Hue Living Room. We'll see you in 2 weeks with a brand new guest. Take care.
See ya.
Bye, Tracy. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.